Okay, so this is a series of tips, basically one particular tip, and I'm just throwing in some other tips and tricks. It's Affinity Designer and Cinema4D. It's creating an EPS, basically exporting an EPS from Affinity Designer and bringing it into Cinema4D. You can probably bring it in some older versions of Cinema. I'm using version R20 or version 20. There are a couple of newer versions, but let's start with Affinity. Very basic, very simple. Let's get into Affinity Designer. Right, we're in Affinity Designer. It's a basic A4 page, but it doesn't really matter because it doesn't really matter what size it is actually. What we're going to create is very, very basic. And I'm going to export or save it as an EPS, but I'm going to also bring in some text or a font, one letter, and convert it from a font to an outline or to a curve as Affinity Designer describes it. So let's do a very basic, let's do an eye shape. Zip, zip. There we go. That's our basic eye shape. And we're going to add a letter, Affinity. Let's call it AF. And let's just resize it. If I can get hold of that. There we go. And let me make this slightly bolder. It's irregular at the moment. Let's bold italic. We can make it, the size doesn't really matter. It's not really important. But what it is important is that this is converted to a curve or an outline. See, at the moment, if I click on this, it's got nodes or control points, whereas the AF does not have. But if I convert that to outline or to curve, so let's go to layer, convert to curves. Can't see anything there, but if I go back into this cursor, click on that, let's go to outline, view, mode, outline view, should actually have, so there we go. So these are now, it's now a shape, it's a curve, basically I've destroyed it as a font or a text and I've converted to a shape. How you know is you can actually distort it from in here, but I won't, I'll undo that. Okay, let's go back to view mode and we'll go back to our pixel, doesn't really matter. Color doesn't matter because we're going to change our colors and change it anyway in Cinema4D. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to export it as an EPS. So export, and let's choose, it's already selected as EPS. The DPI is not important. The rest of it actually you can leave it as it is. Export, I've already saved it once, so let me just save it again. Test export. And then it should automatically be an EPS. Okay, so we're in Cinema4D. We're in the one view. This is all 4 views. We can either open it or we can merge it. I'm going to merge it, not in critical. And we've got yeast export. So let's bring that in. So there it is. It's got no substance to it, or no shape or shade or polygons or anything else at the moment. You can see if we hover over each one of these windows and press O, it'll center that active object. And in fact, this is the active object. So we've got several of them. Let's get this window open. Let's zoom in a little bit. And where are we going? Let's go the eye shape. Let's get our points up. There's our points. Now, if we don't switch off the Z and we start to control or move the controls around, there's a real danger that we can go, and if I go into the other views, there's a real danger that we can twist this offline, basically, as you can see here. So that is twisting it offline. So ideally what we should do is, before we start manipulating that, we switch off the Z or the Z, so that only it constrains it to left and right, up and down. So let's go that. If we wanted to, I mean, obviously what you could do is you could delete some of these points if you wanted to in Cinema. Now if I grab this one, it's going to make the other one very long, as you can see. So the way around that is to hold down your shift button and just grab that one, and you can move that one as at will. And that same with that one. Once you let go, they'll both be manipulable. They'll be you can edit both of those. Anyway, that's our sort of basic shape. We can always edit that afterwards. If we click on the A, that's A outline, and the A inside. Now, how I'm going to show you there's a problem is I'm going to add an extrude. So if I add an extrude to that, and I take the outer A, put it into the extrude, and go around here, you'll see there's a real problem. There's no shape from there to there. Now this just seems to be a quirk of exporting an EPS from Affinity Designer, because you don't get the same from Adobe Illustrator, and I haven't tried it from other applications, but it's easy to get around it. Let's switch off the extrude and we check the points. It's normally a point problem, so if we grab that point, for example, we can see that's a problem. Let's undo that. I'll just show you. If we grab another point, that one's fine. It's joined and it's fine. Now, technically, I'm going to zoom in even closer. You should be able to weld this. With this cursor selected, but only select visible element switched on, it'll only select the top point. If this is switched off, and I go and I select this, it'll clip both points. It'll grab both points. In which case you think, well, it's working, but of course then it's not working. These are two separate points. So let's select that again, go off, and we're going to, now we can do one of two things. What I usually do is I weld these, but for some reason welding doesn't seem to work with these ones. I'll show you what I mean by this. If I right click, bring up the menu and go weld, it looks like it should work. And I click that, it looks like it's welded. Go back to my cursor. Okay, and then I click on one of them, or a point, we're back to where we were. It's not actually welding. So the best thing to do is let's go back to where we want it exactly as it was. Let's take the 1 point, and I'm just going to delete that. If I go to my polygon pen, which is that one, and I simply click on there, it'll automatically close that, join it, and it should be fine. Go back to my cursor, go back to my extrude, and there we have it. We've got an extruded shape. It's quite deep. You can obviously alter the extrude at any point. Let's go down and make it just 2. Or whatever. Let's make it 5, because it doesn't really matter. I mean, obviously, I'm just playing around at the moment. But we do want to knock out the central point of this A. We want to take out the center point. So what we're going to do, I'm going to switch off, and I'm going to get the inner, and I'm going to bring that up to there. Select both, right-click, and connect. And the best thing to do is connect objects and delete in this case. If I go back to my cube again, I've still got a problem, because this, although I'm seeing a block there, and it's actually working, but I know there is a problem on this because let's show you. If I take that point there and I pull this away, it's joined up. It's actually interesting, but it's joined up. So let's go back and go back to this one. Going both, so I want both, and I'm just going to weld them and just see if it welds from here. Let's go back to our cursor. Let's go back to single, select view, one view only. Hopefully it's selecting one view, but it is joined. So it's welded. It's actually welded on that one. But if you have a problem, just delete that 1 point and use your pen tool and click, and you'll close that gap. Okay, so we have an extrude, and we have an extruded object. Let's look at the F. I mean, I can change this. I can now manipulate the extrude. I can give it a cap. Let's give it a cap here. Fillet cap. Way too big. Let's turn that down to 0. whatever, 5. And there we go. I'll show you another tip just now. Let's change that to 1. There we go, just so it's a bit more visible. And you can put one on the front and one on the back. Let's go one on the back. And we go 1 as well. So there we go. We've got that front and back if you wanted to. Now this is still an object that you can edit. You can go in here and you can say I want current state of object. Well, basically it's going to fix that one as it is. And also it'll probably duplicate it. Let me just show you. So that's original, and this is the one we've just created. Let's get that, and I'll show you that if we move that out of the way. So this is the current state of object. Basically it's a fixed object, although it's got several parts to it. So ideally what you want to do is you want to select what, that, and connect and delete. Now it's one object, and you can call it whatever, A2, whatever you want to. Oh, I've got A add, A2, and that's one object. And if I press 0, it'll zoom it into full screen or into the center of that screen. And I can now select the faces. So if I want to select all of the faces, it should give me an option of doing that by here. And it's going to select all of those faces that I want selected. Let's do the same here, right? Loop, select, and I'm going to hold down the shift button so it selects both of those. It's not doing that for some reason. It's not, but anyway. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a selection, a set selection of this. And instantly it's brought me up a little triangle, a new triangle. These are all the other faces, which they're default. I didn't create those, so I can actually delete those. It doesn't really make any difference. But this one now is my created set selection. And let's just call it edge, call it whatever you want. EDGE, here we go. So that's your edge. Let's just switch off. And let's go back to my cursor. And let's go create two materials, new material. And let's give that a color. And let's copy paste that. So copy paste or Control C, Control V if you're on a PC. Let's go to that one and let's just give that a different color. Right, now what I'm going to do is I want green on just, so I'm going to drag that, or I can drag it, it doesn't really matter, I can drag it up to here. So that is everything, but I just want this triangle to be, or that selected area to be green. So if I go here, and in that, I drag that down as my selection onto my selection. There we go. So that basically is that green. I can do that with any face, any edge, pretty much. Set selection. These solid triangles mean it's a face. The empty triangles will be a line. If I use this line, and then you've got points. Okay, so that's that. Let's look at this eye very quickly. Okay, here's the eye. Let's just get that into the center of the screen a little bit more. And that's the F at the bottom, that's the I. Let's just call it I, just because we can. We don't have to call it I, but A. And if you want to carry on manipulating it or moving it around, let's take the Z off. And we can obviously, pressing E, we can make it wherever we want it. Bring it up, bring it down, bring it around. Let's bring that one down a little bit. Now there's a gap there. Let's put that into an extrusion. So I'm going to copy this extrusion, copy, paste, take that path out of there and put the eye into here. And there we go. We can see there's a problem there. It's extruding the path, but it's not giving us an extruded shape, and that's because it's not a closed object. So we need to close the object. So there's one of two ways of doing it. Let's switch off extrude. And again, technically, I will show you the same process, which you can normally do, but it's not seemingly working with an EPS coming from Affinity Designer. Right click, weld. And if I go in close up, it shows you that it should technically weld. So if I click and then get back to my cursor, and with this showing me visible, only visible selected. I'm only selecting one point if they're 2 points, if they're not welded, and they're not welded. I do not know why that is happening on this particular EPS, but it's not a problem. So let's just go out, let's undo this, undo that, and where we were with our gap. I mean, I can edit this, but it's going to probably change the shape of it anyway. Now, the ideal is to just join this up. You could delete this, of course. If you deleted that, you're going to have to work from this point and join up there, or you can simply join the two of those points, if I can ever find them again. So there's our 2 points. We're getting our pen tool, and we're just going to join. Undo that, there to there, just showing you again. It's all joined up. Now I could weld those, but it's probably going to give me a bit of a, come on. It's probably going to change this curve very slightly, but I'll do that anyway. So let me weld them. I've got the two selected, right click, weld, there. It hasn't changed it too badly, but it's killed the one, so it's made it a hard edge. It's made it a straight line to the bottom. Ideally what I want to do is select it and go into my splines and make it a soft. Now that gives me the control points. Z is switched off, so it should contain it to left and right, up and down. And if I just hold the shift button, I can just change that one there if I wanted to. And I could add more points. You could actually say right click, create point. So if I wanted to create a point there, and I wanted to create a point there, I would just click, go back to my cursor, and I can edit those points as well if I wanted to. There's no reason to do that. You don't have to unless you wanted to add some new features, some new whatever into it. It's probably a bit weird. Right, if I go to extrude, you'll see it's extruded, giving me an extruded shape. And it's brought in, because the extruder's got the fillet cap on it, it's given me an automatic fillet cap. I could, if I wanted to, I could actually take that eye out of the extrude and just simply give it an outline by having all selected. Let's go there and let's go dot and go all selected, right click, create outline. And the broader I take the, or the further I take it, the thicker the outline. I brought that back into the extrude again, just so you can see it. And extrude is a bit thick, so let me take that down to 0.2, or take it off completely, none. But I want a cap, and I want a cap. There we go. So that's extruded cap, but that's an outline. And of course you can thicken that outline if you wanted to. And we can add a little shape within that shape. Let's take a cylinder. Let's reverse, take it, hold down the shift, give it 90 degrees. Not sure where it sits in here, so let's go to our 4 views. I think the cylinder is way out of there. Right, the cylinder is also way too big, so let's size it down. Again, if I press O, it brings the active object into the center of the screen. Still a bit too big, obviously. Let's size it down again. It's still a primitive object because it's still a cylinder. If I press C, it converts it to a polygon. And now I can size it independently if I wanted to, and I can bring it in as well into the center of the eye. And that can be our pupil. Let's have a look at it here. And let's just drag a color onto that and drag a separate color onto that. And there we go. And if I want to change I want to add some more, make a punch a hole in it or whatever. Right, let's punch a hole in it for the sake of the exercise. And in this one it's called bool or boolean. It's a boolean or bool. So if we add a bool there and we've got another cylinder behind, let's just bring the cylinder right through. Now we can actually knock a hole in it. We can change the color of, let's add an orange to this so that when it's knocked out, it'll add an orange inner to the green. So let's take the cylinder, put that in there, and then take that cylinder, and it should, sorry, we didn't go in there. Let's get back to that, and there's our boolean. There's our punch hole. Probably not in the center, so we can move it around actually. And you can see how we can maneuver it about. And you can resize it in here too. It's invisible, but it's there. You can see it. It's actually there. And I think that's enough. What we'll do later on in another exercise, we'll show you how the volume builder and the volume mesher work. They're only from this version are 20 upwards, I think. I don't think it's in an earlier version. It's nothing that you couldn't do previously, but this just makes it so much easier and it's very powerful. But I think it's enough for today. Cheers.